Alright, I guess I can try. So, I don't know if it was the weirdest, but it was pretty intense story a few years ago. Like 5 or 6. I was living down towards Dundalk in a neighborhood called Colgate. And, we were, some roommates, we were kind of in the occulty side of things, but I don't know how relevant that was. There was a little backstory to a lot was going on back then, but I was staying in the basement. Like, we kind of swapped rooms a little bit, but I ended up in the basement. It was like a basement apartment, and I had a blacklight set up as my main one. So the room is like very dark and nesty, and but it had that kind of like purple glow. And but apparently a blacklight will kind of provoke sleep paralysis, which happened a few times in that house or in that room. Not only there, but hold on. And so one night I was laying down in my bed and I was about to drift off to sleep. And I found myself kind of in a moment of sleep paralysis where I was drifting off in a dreamland and something kind of startled me, pulled me back into coherence. And, I was like, I was awake and I was looking around my room, like trying to figure out what had kind of bothered me. And, looking down at my own body while I was asleep before I realized that I couldn't move. Like, I moved my arm and then I realized that I looked at my arm move, but my physical arm did not move. So you could say it was kind of like my dream self or etheric body was superimposed over mine, but I could not move my normal body easily. Now I should say a lot of paranormal encounters happen through sleep paralysis, but not always so. But a lot of them do happen when you are drifting off to sleep or when you wake up, and it's kind of like a liminal state. I was kind of in my, I was in my bed realizing it. I was like, oh shit, I'm having a moment of sleep paralysis. That's fine, but that's interesting. I want to see I want to explore how my body's moving and stuff like that. I'm sitting there trying to will my limbs to move when something kind of just pulled my consciousness a little bit, like my attention towards the door to my room. Now the way it was set up, there was one door, to my room in the basement. It was kind of like a double wooden door with like the what do you call them? Like little like wooden slits in it, and it's kind of like a normal sized door, but it was split down the middle and it led to the rest of the basement. But it was open, and it just looked like a black rectangle. So the rest of the basement was dark, just absolute, just darkness. And at that point, I felt this aversion, like this sense of danger or like incoming, like something set you off, something's got your attention. It was like that almost like small adrenaline rush, and I was still in that paralysis state, but I could see the room as it would be physically, and there was no distinction. It wasn't really like a dream state or anything like that. Like I was conscious, just kind of like overlaid. I was like disconnected slightly from my body, though I was aware enough to like say, come on, like move. So it felt like something was, in a split second, I felt like something was watching me and coming towards me. And after that split second, my eyes locked on that black rectangle of the door. And my bed faced the door, so my feet were kind of like, the foot of my bed was maybe 4 feet from it. And so I'm like looking down over my body, and there's a door, this rectangle. And I see, it says absolute darkness, blackness in that door. And then the best way I can describe it is a black dog, like a canine, trotted out of it. And it was absolutely all black. And I don't mean like black fur. I mean it was of a black color deeper than darkness. Like it was blacker than black. And it somehow had kind of a definition to it while it didn't. And it looked like a Doberman. Had no eyes that I could see. But it had enough definition. I got cut off, but it had enough definition, and I remember its movement so clearly. It was like You ever seen a dog move, like how they lope, where you see kind of like its muscles move and they kind of get that trot? Like it kind of like did that casual trot out of that door and just stood for a moment at the right corner at the end of my bed looking at me. And then me, I'm just like, oh shit. And as it did so, it stopped and then melted upwards into a black figure. And I should say at that point I'm a little like anxious. I'm like, oh shit, that is not good. Remembering in my dream state and paralysis, and I'm trying some magician tricks, some magical stuff that I know that because I was fully myself, and I'm basically trying to will my limbs to move. And, there's certain things you could do in that state, like magical techniques and motions and words. So I start focusing on them to do them in that space, and I won't go into detail like what, but throw up certain symbols and kind of call certain energies and things like that, like essentially like get the fuck out. And they kind of popped off, and when it happened, kind of felt like a rush coming from me throwing that out there, and it looked like a video in reverse, like the figure just melted down back into the dog, and then it trotted backwards out of the darkness, and a couple seconds later I regained, and then I regained my motion and could snap right away. But there was no change in consciousness. It's not like I woke up. It's like I kind of just became able to move again. So that's a pretty weird one. Not the only odd thing that happened in that room when I was sleeping. But for now, we'll leave that.